From the moment the boy stepped into the audition line, outside the Pasadena Civic Auditorium, there was something unmistakably different about him, something quietly powerful, like a small flame determined to survive against strong winds. He was thin, carrying an old backpack whose zipper barely worked, and his sneakers had tiny holes near the front, proof of countless days spent walking the busy streets of Manila. His name was Elijah, a 12-year-old Filipino kid who had spent most of his life singing on sidewalks, jeepney stops, public plazas, and even under the LRT tracks, where the echo of his voice bounced between concrete pillars. Growing up in Manila's crowded district of Tondo, he had seen more hardship than most children his age, yet he carried something precious that poverty could never steal from him, a voice so pure, so full of emotion, that even strangers stopped in their tracks when they heard him. Every day after school, he would sing for hours in the streets, while holding a small plastic cup, hoping people would throw in coins, just enough to help his mother buy rice, or medicine for his little sister Mara, who struggled with asthma. Elijah's dream was simple yet enormous. One day he wanted the whole world to hear him sing, not because he was seeking fame, but because he wanted to lift his family out of the weight of their daily struggles. The opportunity came unexpectedly, when a tourist couple from Los Angeles recorded him singing Lupang Hinirang during Independence Day celebrations in Rizal Park. They uploaded it to social media, and within days the video exploded online, gathering millions of views, spreading across Filipino communities all over the world, and eventually reaching the eyes of an AGT producer, who immediately reached out to invite him to audition in America. Elijah couldn't believe it. Neither could his mom, who worked night shifts cleaning offices. Their relatives cried when they heard the news. Friends from their neighborhood hugged him and told him to bring pride to the Philippines. The night before his flight, Elijah went to the rooftop of their building. He looked at Manila's night sky, dim but familiar, closed his eyes, and whispered a quiet promise that he would not waste this chance. Not after everything his family had been through. He clutched the small rosary his father had given him before he passed away, and took a deep breath, imagining what the AGT stage would look like. When Elijah finally arrived in Los Angeles, everything felt unreal. The cold breeze, the wide roads, the tall buildings, the massive screens flashing advertisements, and the cultural mix of faces everywhere he turned. The AGT hotel felt as big as an entire block in Manila. His mom held his hand tightly, repeating that she was proud of him no matter what happened. The next morning, as they walked toward the venue, Elijah felt his heart pounding so hard, he thought the judges might hear it before he even got on stage. Backstage was a world of organized chaos. Camera operators, producers with headsets, performers rehearsing nervously, dancers stretching, magicians adjusting props, and singers practicing lines under their breath. Elijah sat on a small metal chair, his fingers trembling, as he played with the broken zipper of his backpack. A producer knelt in front of him and asked gently if he was ready. Elijah nodded, though every ounce of him felt terrified. His mom squeezed his shoulders, looked into his eyes, and reminded him that he wasn't alone, that he carried the pride of millions of Filipinos with him, and that whatever the outcome, he had already made history by stepping on this stage. When the giant doors opened and the blinding stage lights hit his eyes, Elijah froze for a moment. The audience spread out before him like an ocean, thousands of people all staring. The judges' table sat right at the front, with Howie smiling encouragingly, Heidi giving a curious tilt of her head, Sophia waving gently, and Simon Cowell leaning back in his chair with a serious, unreadable expression. Elijah approached the mic stand slowly. The host whispered, "You've got this from the wings." And Elijah inhaled deeply. Simon was the first to speak, asking his name, his age, and where he came from. Elijah answered softly, his accent shining through, telling them he was from Manila, Philippines. The audience cheered Simon, then asked what he would be performing. And Elijah said he chose to sing Lupang Hinirang, the Philippine national anthem, because it was the song that carried his story, his identity, and his people's pride. The judges looked surprised. No one had ever sung their national anthem on AGT before. Simon told him it was a bold choice, but encouraged him to begin whenever he was ready. The auditorium fell silent, so silent that Elijah could hear his own breath trembling as he closed his eyes. Then, with the softest, purest tone, he began the first line. Instantly, the crowd reacted. not loudly but in a stunned, breathless way as if they had just witnessed something sacred. The way Elijah delivered each word carried depth and pain and strength, as if he were singing not only for himself, but for the millions of Filipinos working overseas, struggling back home, fighting for dreams in faraway lands. His voice climbed beautifully, soaring higher and higher, steady yet emotional even without understanding Tagalog. The audience felt the weight of his message. As he reached the powerful crescendo, his small frame trembling with passion. Something unexpected happened. Simon Cowell leaned forward, his eyes glistening. Struck by the sincerity and raw beauty of the boy's voice, this wasn't just a performance. It was a declaration of identity, resilience, and patriotism. When Elijah finished the last note, the room erupted. Every single person rose to their feet cheering, clapping, some wiping away tears. Elijah opened his eyes stunned, overwhelmed by the thunderous applause that surrounded him like a wave. He had never seen so many people stand for him. His mom backstage broke down crying, her hands over her face, unable to believe that her son, the boy who once sang on dusty Manila streets, had just received a standing ovation. On one of the biggest stages in the world, the judges took turns speaking, each more emotional than the last, Heidi told him. She didn't need to understand the language to feel the meaning. Sophia said his voice carried a story that touched everyone listening. How? He praised his bravery for choosing a song so culturally significant, but it was Simon's response that shocked the audience. He paused, looked at Elijah for several long seconds, and said he had never been moved by a national anthem. The way he had been today, he said it wasn't just singing, it was storytelling, heart, and courage. Then Simon stood up and the entire room gasped, because everyone knew what was coming. Elijah's hands flew to his mouth. As Simon reached toward the golden buzzer, Simon pressed it with force, and the stage exploded with golden confetti, raining down like shimmering pieces of a dream finally coming true. Elijah dropped to his knees, sobbing while the crowd roared. His mom ran onto the stage, hugging him tightly, confetti landing on their hair and clothes. Simon came up to them and said, "You made your country proud today." Elijah nodded through tears, whispering, "Para po esa Pilipinas." Backstage, producers flooded around him, everyone buzzing with excitement. His video clip was posted instantly on AGT's official social media pages and began gaining millions of views. Within hours, Filipinos across the world shared it with pride, saying they had never seen their anthem sung on such a massive international stage. Back home in Manila, watch parties formed spontaneously in barangays, malls, and sari-sari stores. His school gathered students around a projector to watch the replay, and many cried, seeing their classmate achieve something so extraordinary. Even news outlets began covering the story, calling him the golden boy of the Philippines. Elijah and his mom received calls from relatives, neighbors, teachers, and even strangers, thanking him for representing their country with so much heart. But the journey didn't end with the golden buzzer. Elijah continued through the competition with the same humility and determination he had carried since the beginning. He worked with vocal coaches, learned stage presence techniques, and spent nights practicing in the hotel room. While his mom reminded him to rest, he made friends backstage with contestants from other countries, and they often asked him to teach them Filipino words or songs. Every time he performed, he carried a small Philippine flag inside his pocket, as a silent reminder of who he was and where he came from. When the semifinals arrived, Elijah delivered a performance that left the judges speechless. Once again, his story spread beyond the Filipino community and touched people of all backgrounds, who saw in him the embodiment of perseverance and hope. By the finals, he had become one of the favorites to win the entire show. Regardless of the outcome, though, Elijah already felt victorious. He had lifted his family out of hardship, inspired a nation, and told the story of a kid from the streets of Manila who dared to dream beyond what seemed possible. On the night of the final performance, before stepping on stage, he whispered a quiet thank you to his father, to his country, and to the people who believed in him when life was at its hardest. As he walked into the spotlight once more, Elijah realized that this was no longer just his journey. It was the journey of every Filipino kid who had ever felt unseen, unheard, or underestimated, and with that thought in his heart, he began to sing.